We're going to call this meeting of the Del Mar College Board of Regents to order. It is 4 p.m. on Tuesday, January 14th. We are meeting in a special called meeting today. I want to wish everyone a Happy New Year and hope that everybody's Christmas break, holiday break was enjoyable and you got some good time off. I have to confess that I did not text with Dr. Escamilla one time during the holiday break. It wasn't until after the first of the year that he and I had our first communication. So if he worked over the break, it is not my fault. But welcome back, everyone. I'm going to do a roll call to establish our quorum. Regent Loeb. Regent Garza. Here. Dr. Adami. Here. Dr. Turner.
Here.
Regent Kelly.
Here.
Regent Cruel. Here. I'm Carol Scott. We have a quorum and can conduct business. Would you please join me in a moment of silence? Thank you. And Dr. Turner, would you lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And let's read together our Del Mar College vision statement. Del Mar College empowers our communities to achieve their dreams. So we are streaming live audio and video of our official Board of Regents meetings on the college's website in real time, with exception of portions of the meeting that may be considered closed session by statute. We have at this time an opportunity for anyone to make general public comment for items not on the agenda. I don't see anyone present, so we will move on to our one discussion item for the day. We're going to have a presentation to discuss some ideas related to freshman tuition and fees waiver, a pilot program that staff is going to be presenting. So we're going to ask Dr. Escamilla to give us some opening comments and then turn it over to staff for the presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy New Year to everyone. I want everybody to gain some perspective. I need some more smiles out there. First of all, let's be happy, because remember how hot it was in August? Okay, I'm trying to, there you go. Okay, we all remember how blazing hot it was. Again, thanks to all. And I want to begin by thanking the Board of Regents for this opportunity to call a special called meeting. We typically, or have begun traditionally to, tried not to have meetings in January, but this one was most important, and we appreciate the adjustments in the schedules and to that of the staffs as well, to meet, to talk about a most important prospective policy change. I want to thank the staff. I want to thank the staff that have come together over these past several months now to put this information together and putting this data together and working together with our colleagues from Austin Community College, Alamo Community College District, and the like. Mr. Garcia, the business office team, really kicked us off in earnest in, I think, early part of fall. And really dove into this and has really brought out some tremendous work. Mr. Sushil Palamoni, thank you for the data and thank you for supporting us as our Chief Analytics Officer and all that you do. Certainly Ms. Lenora Keys and team and Dr. Jonda. How come everybody who's come together to put their minds around these kind of potential things over in student services with Patricia and Gracie and so forth. The entire team that has touched this is much appreciated. And I just want to start us with that. What is the purpose for today? Well, the purpose really can't be better said than our vision statement that we just recited together. Empowering our communities to achieve their dreams. That's what we're talking about today, ladies and gentlemen. We're here to discuss a potential policy change to advance educational opportunities and outcomes for our students, to strengthen their families and our local economy, certainly. We're here also to examine new methods of supporting our students and completing their studies in the most efficient ways possible under the auspices and otherwise the guidance of our new historic legislation of HB 8. We're here to listen to the Board of Regents' perspectives, opinions, and otherwise thoughts about a proposal for student tuition and fee pilot waiver program, a potential tuition and fee pilot waiver program, that's a mouthful, and share a new potential policy at the February 4th board meeting for the fall semester of 2025. So we still have some time in front of us. We still have work to do is what I'm trying to get at with that one. We're also here, we do all this, we do so knowing that at this time there are many variables affecting our students' experience here at the college. Ladies and gentlemen, the governor's mandate that precludes tuition and fee increases, we found out he was originally proposed for universities and the like, now include health institutions, and guess who else? Community colleges. We are included in that, so that is part of the backdrop. So next, and again, the historic legislation of the 88th legislation, namely House Bill 8, has changed the financial structure of community colleges forever, and now provides that 95% plus of our state appropriations are derived from performance-based outcomes. We've got to go earn it, ladies and gentlemen, and we know we're ready for that challenge. We know that 75% or 70% anyway, depending on how you slice it, of our students are part-time, and that is an impediment, yet it's a strength and a weakness of our students as they matriculate through their experience here. But what we also know is the data shows that when our students take on a full-time status as a student here, no matter where they are in the curriculum, that they matriculate at better rates and persist at better rates. Lastly, the Texas economy alone, if you think about it, and as the data has been showing, that we are the 13th largest economy in the world if we stand alone. I was sharing that with some friends from out of state this weekend, and they were just blown away by that data point. Knowing that and knowing what the role of the coastal bend is in regards to the state and the importance and the pivotal nature of this little cul-de-sac by the sea, like I like to say, is a critical component of the state's economy and so forth. Del Mar College has an incredible opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to change the trajectory of our families, the local businesses, and our great state. Thank you, Madam Chair, for this opportunity to open with some remarks. And again, thank you all for this opportunity to be here. I'm very excited. Thank you.
So, Mr. Garcia, we'll let you start the staff presentation, and you can expect lots of questions, I'm sure.
Yes, thank you very much. Wanting to wish everybody a Happy New Year. I hope your holiday and Christmas was great. Mine was certainly wonderful. Want to start off with some context in which before taking a deeper dive into this proposed freshman tuition and fee waiver pilot program. So Dr. Escamilla sparked the conversation by expressing interest in learning more about the Austin Community College Tuition Assistance Program, which was launched fall of 2024. The college and team, we all met with the Austin Community College folks as well as the Alamo College District. And we learned that the Austin plan uses the first dollar in model, and the Alamo plan uses the last dollar in model. And I will go into further details on what that means. But know that our proposed plan today is designed and customized with an understanding of our students and designed using similar concepts used by the Austin Community College. Today's presentation, we will introduce the overall goals of the pilot program, describe the characteristics of our students, and we will also go over details of our plan. We are also asking or seeking the board's feedback, which will help further shape our design and financial plan. We will also leverage your feedback to build our growth strategy efforts that includes bolstering the student experience, such as faculty and student advising, and building a more robust marketing communication for this particular cohort. With that said, Ms. Keys will go over our goals for the pilot program.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. As you can see, our goals are really to introduce, our goals are really tied directly to House Bill 8 and the strategic plan that we've just adopted for this next year, the next 5 years. As we look at our goals and as we become more and more familiar with House Bill 8 and fully integrated with House Bill 8, we recognize the need for students to complete and to students to reach their own goals as we reach the milestones as set out by House Bill 8. So as we put this together, we recognize that as we look at different cohorts of students and in studying these various plans, that for students to receive a free tuition or tuition and fees at no cost, that the benefits could be great. And what we're looking at is how to increase student retention over a period of time and also reduce the time to completion. I know over the last several years we've talked about the need to reduce that time to completion. And just to give you one benchmark, the rate for first-time in college students for our retention, for our time to completion in 2019 was they would complete in 3 years. 18.5% of students were completing in 3 years. And so that's an alarming benchmark. And so we say these goals are worthy, they truly are. And so as we can move these forward and tie these goals back to our strategic plan, this could become very relevant. The bottom of the line would be that we would also increase graduation rates and ultimately increase the overall enrollment patterns. And so as we look at truly looking at a certain cohort of students, and that's what we're looking at today, and what you're going to see going forward in the financial plan and in our guidelines and cohort that we've put together, that there truly are some parameters by which we're putting the pilot together. And it is a finite cohort. Mr. Garcia, in his review of the cohort, has looked at an academic year of 23-24 and looked at an exact group of students. And so we've been able to model this pilot plan around these goals moving forward. And now Sushil Palamoni is going to give you some data and impact on our students. Sushil?
Good afternoon, Dr. Escamilla, Madam Chair and Regents. So I will be sharing some data on the student demographics. So I'll be talking about both the academic side and on the continuing education side. So for on the academic credit side, we're looking at fall 24, the most recent numbers. We had about 10,250 students who had enrolled for the last fall semester. That was up 5% from the previous fall. So the data that we're looking at is basically student demographics for fall 24. And for the CE side, I'll be sharing the Q1 numbers that goes from September through November. So if you look at the gender percentages, we know that our student body is made up of primarily more number of female students. As you can see, it's almost 57% compared to the male students. This has actually gone down a little bit. 3 or 4 years back, female students were almost 60%. So the male number of students is slowly catching up by a small percentage every fall. But this aligns with higher education trends, where we have seen more female students enrolling at a higher rate compared to male students. In terms of ethnicity, as you can see, the predominant category is Hispanic students. We serve primarily Hispanic students, followed by white and other races, that they make up about 90%. And if you look at the age group category, the young adults who are under 25, that combines under 20 and 22, 24, that is almost a little over 72%. So the college primarily serves, as you can see, traditional college-going students who are under 25, college-age students.
As you're switching, Sushil, I'd just like to point out just that the ethnicity breakdown and so forth is very reflective of our community, very closely reflective. That is not a small matter. That's very important. Thank you.
So next, we have the status data. So as you can see, overwhelming number of students are part-time, almost 84%. Again, this is slowly starting to increase. We've seen a shift. Like 3 years back, I remember seeing it was 13, 14% full-time students. Now it has gone up to 16%. That's something where we are looking to, this plan is looking to increase the number of full-time students. So, it pretty much shows that most of our part-time students are trying to balance work and education and maybe other commitments. And if you look at the tuition status, we primarily serve in-district students, or 72% of the student body, and most of them, if you look at the county data, they come from Nueces County. That equates to about 74%. And San Patricio, together, they're about that. Both counties equate to about 87 to 90%, depending on different terms. So that pretty much shows college has a strong focus on the regional side of our service area. And if you look at the dual enrollment, I'm sure we're all aware that has changed quite significantly over the last 5 to 10 years. The regular student body right now is about 70%. The dual credit has gone up. If you see the last 5 years, it has almost gone up 20%. If you look at the 10-year change, it's almost 100%. We've doubled the number of dual credit students enrolling at high school, at Del Mar College. So that's a big shift, and that actually shows a strong dual enrollment program focus and strong connectivity with local high schools.
I'm going to ask you a trick question. Actually, not a trick question, but a question that's going to hopefully have the answer to. So considering the increase of our dual credit students, I think if I understood you correctly, it's moved up 15 points approximately in 10 years, from 15% to 30%.
Right.
Of our students are dual credit.
Right.
So that would also affect our age, the lowering of our age under 20, because the reality is most of those are, some percentage of those are under 18, and it's also affected our growth in part-time students.
Right.
If we took dual credit out of the figures, would we be closer to where we have been historically, or would those numbers be shifting anyway?
I think they would be shifting a little bit, but then you're looking at only regular credit students, right? Who've not dual credit. So among that, we'll have to take a look at and see what those numbers look like. But I think we are definitely shifting.
I would add that as opposed to the national average, which is probably closer to 30%, average age, 30 years old, it's 28, somewhere around there. I have noticed that even with if you pulled out dual credit, that the average age has been slowly declining at the college. And I'm not talking significantly, but probably a few years where if we pulled out dual credit, I'm going to say it's in the mid-20s as opposed to the upper 20s and even 30, because the average age just 15, 20 short years ago used to be closer, for nationally, 30, 31 years old. Right. So ours has been lowering. Sure. That's my guess. We'll verify that.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so now we have the CE side demographics. Again, we're looking at the Q1 data for fall 2024. So if you see these gender breakdown, primarily female students. As you can see on the CE side, we have a little more female students compared to the credit side. So it was about 57%. We're looking at about 8% increase on the CE side. Again, serving Hispanic students, more number of Hispanic followed by white students. But if you look at the dual student type, the dual enrollment has significantly increased on the CE side. Again, this is probably effect of the FAST program. We've seen that shift going up. It's getting almost close to 50% now, 50% dual and 50% regular. And if you combine both the CE and the credit dual enrollment numbers, we were looking at last 2 years' data. The college served almost 5,000, a little over 5,000 students on an annual basis. And that equates to about 25% of the whole annual headcount. So that has, seen a significant shift over the last few years. On the CE side, in the age group classification, if you see under the young adults, we have a little fewer compared to the academic side. We have 65%. But then the other categories, it's pretty much evenly distributed between 5 and 6%. That kind of reflects most of them are probably, people who are working and taking courses for personal enrichment and, enhancing their skills. So we have a fewer young adults on the CE side compared to the academic side. In terms of the residents, we have 72% coming from Nueces County, followed by San Patricio. But if you combine, 88% of those students are pretty much coming from those two counties. So again, that reflects we have a strong regional focus in our service area. Lenora Keys is going to talk about the plan and design. Thank you.
Thank you, Sushil. Again, when we put together the plan, we had to decide on some criteria. And again, this is where we're really seeking feedback and direction, because anytime you put together a pilot program and we decide a cohort of students, particularly so that we could put the financial piece to it, we had to have some parameters. Now, these parameters still need to be defined. Many of them are still broadly based, put it that way. And so we're asking for your feedback today. But I wanted to share with you today how this financial model came together so that when you look at the next set of slides, which has to do with the projections, it will make more sense. Mr. Garcia was able to actually look at the student cohort coming out of 23-24, and of that, there were 541 unduplicated students in which began the basis of the study.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
About the financial aid and Pell Awards after tuition and fees are paid by the program. So,
Yes, sir.
So if the program pays for the tuition and fees, the Pell Grant, the whole of the Pell Grant would go to the student for other uses?
Yes, sir. That's the design that we're proposing today, and we're asking for feedback about that piece. That was the plan that Alamo Community...
And what is the Pell Grant amount right now?
Is Joseph here?
Somewhere around $3,000?
Well, let me expand on that a little bit, if I can backtrack a little bit. The first modeling that we're proposing is we're saying, hey, we're just going to waive the entire basic tuition and fee cost of the students.
Right.
Raul Garcia, you get Pell money, and let's just say $3,000. Historically, we've applied those $3,000 to pay part of the tuition and fee cost.
Right.
This model says, no, you keep those dollars. You take away and use that to address the financial barriers that you're dealing with while attending at Del Mar College. That's how Austin Community College has designed their plan, the first dollar in. We're not touching their financial aid at all. It's for them to keep. That's how the plan is designed today.
So what about scholarship students that get scholarship money from?
Any award that they are given, and if the award allows it, they walk away with those dollars. We're saying you keep those dollars. That's for you to address your financial needs.
So what if the scholarship from some source is specifically says for tuition and fees?
Yeah, so we have been in discussion about that. We're still trying to work out the mechanics.
I don't know that there's scholarships that are like that, but there might be.
There is a possibility, yes.
Yes, sir.
But we still need to discuss it in more detail with the financial aid office and how to better design this show that if there is
gonna-
language like
I-
that.
We're going to ask Matthew to step up
Yeah,
and kind of
Matthew.
join us with
there
this
you go.
because he's got more.
Okay, so Regent Cruel, your question is, in association with this, are there current Del Mar College Foundation scholarships?
Not necessarily foundation scholarships, but say a student gets a scholarship from the Raul Garcia endowment, and that endowment says that the scholarship goes to tuition and fees. And then there's a student who qualifies for this program.
I understand, yeah. So we do facilitate, the foundation facilitates our own scholarships, but we also facilitate what you're talking about. So we have many entities across Corpus Christi and even beyond that do give students scholarships. Sometimes they're tied to tuition and fees. They're managed by that third-party entity.
Right.
I don't know yet how that would impact if they had their tuition and fees covered under this program, though.
It would depend on the entity that it's coming from. They could very well be precluded from having those two buckets available to
Right.
them. If they're saying that it's going to depend on where those dollars are from. Regent Crow, I think it's a very specific question. It's one that we probably will run into, and we'll probably, like many other instances, have to handle it on an individual basis.
Just for some perspective, Regent Cruel, if I can share. So the foundation itself awarded about 1,200 students $2.7 million. In perspective, the third-party scholarships we're talking about, excuse me, was about $250,000 to $300,000 in sum total for a year. So even though this situation may indeed arise, I think it would be a smaller portion of the students that you're referencing.
Yeah.
Does that help answer your?
And how many students?
Yeah, well, I just want to get some, clarity maybe of how that might be handled. I mean, there's other scholarship programs out there that are probably outside of the foundation, like a Kiwanis Scholarship or a Rotary Scholarship or some.
So sometimes
else.
when you see, Regent Cruel, that at the $250,000, that third-party gift from Lions to Kiwanis to Rotary, right?
Okay.
They take two approaches. The first approach is that here's a $3,000 scholarship, congratulations, and we take those funds and apply it to the student's account.
Right.
The other approach, and it's a smaller subset of that, is that they want to see the exact tuition and fees bill, and then they'll reimburse the student. Of the sum total, it is much smaller of those than it is the blanket.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
If I can just add one thing, Lenora asked me, it's not listed as a bullet point, but an element of the design is when we shared with Dr. Escamilla and Lenora and others, the foundation received about 3,300 student applications for scholarships, all right? And we awarded a record number of students, but we emailed over 2,000 students with, I'm sorry, we're out of funds. All right, and so these are students that have 4.0 GPAs that have demonstrated financial need. A lot of great students, but that is a small element, I think, in this plan's design.
And if I may add, what you just touched on is the complexity of the newness of this plan.
Yeah.
We're not the only ones that have faced these hard questions. I suspect that the conversation is going to change with these major donors, where historically or traditionally we've said, hey, pay their tuition and fees. Now the conversation is saying, hey, partner with us. We're picking up the tab on the tuition and fees. Can you adjust your donation or your commitment, 500, 200, and change it so that the student can use those dollars for the economic barriers that they're dealing with. So it just changes. It is going to be a lot of heavy lifting. The transition is not going to be easy, but we understand those complications, and it's just going to change the conversation with our partners, I would think.
And I think one of the key elements, the overriding umbrella of the whole program is that not all students would participate in the program, and that we look at different ways in which you could either control the number of the cohort particularly in the pilot moving forward, we would somehow, we would set parameters so that it's not just everybody coming in. There would be a cohort definition, and it would be for those students that will sign a 3-year commitment in a form of, we can call it a contract, but it truly is an agreement, a commitment, to go full-time, to take a minimum of 12 hours per semester, fall and spring, and if they go summer, it would be included. But they have to commit to this. There would be a GPA minimum, and there would be advanced or enhanced advising and student services to help the students succeed. And so what we're trying to do here is to really create a support system financially with student services, and then also recognizing, which we've talked about many times and y'all are very much aware of, the life events of our students that really get in the way of success. And so how do we relieve that burden? And that's really the idea behind Austin Community Colleges, and I previously said Alamo, I said it wrong. Austin Community College's first in dollar. And so that's really the overriding premise, put it that way, as to why we feel like these students would be much more likely to persist and succeed and graduate. And that's the biggest part of the program. But
Well,
questions, yes. Yes. Or what?
So how is the college covering for these costs?
Well, we have a complete financial plan that I'd like to show you in the next
Okay.
slide before we get into all the detail, because it does, and it's fundamentally, to answer it quickly, is if students persist as they commit to, then the state reimbursement covers the majority of it moving forward. Okay.
Yeah, is
Yeah.
reimbursement, that's fine.
Okay, I was listening to the cohort, or the definition of cohort, and so are we talking about first-time students who haven't been to college, or let's say someone has been to Del Mar, but they're starting a new program and looking to get a new associate's degree or certification, would someone like that qualify?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
I love the way you think. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and this is a question I asked Dr. Escamilla earlier. The financial aid or the fees and tuition is the carrot for signing this agreement, but what is the stick if they don't?
We have to decide that. The stick is, if you put it that way, would be that they do not continue with the program.
Right.
Yeah. However, we can always write in different things, and that's not really been decided yet. However, what would be enforceable is questionable.
Yeah. I mean, you could say, if you drop out, you can't come back, or if you drop out, you come back, you pay full tuition and fees. There's got to
But
be
that would be
some-
it.
Yeah, sure,
Once they're
sure.
out of the program, then feasibly, tuition and fees would come into play.
Yeah, there's got to be some incentive for the people to stay in the program, other than receiving the tuition and fees.
Well, that's what it is. Austin has designed it where it's a win or lose situation, meaning you have 3 years to complete certain standards that we're looking for, certain expectations of the student. And you have 3 years. After that, it's on your penny. We're giving you a chance. We try to, and as a matter of fact, my understanding, it takes about 60 semester hours on the average to finish an associate's degree.
60
We
credits.
have it,
60
65.
credits.
60 credit hours,
60
that's the
credits.
minimum.
So
Yeah.
one of the standards is, the expectations of the student is that they register for a minimum of 12 hours. So they have, and which means minimum. They can take 15 hours and be done in 2 years.
Let's go ahead with this next
Yeah,
slide if we
let's-
could. and
we
I
got to
think
proceed.
it'll-
Hold on. We're going to answer all these. We're going to
I
backfill
think
these
it'll help
questions.
pull it together.
Yeah, we're getting way,
Yeah.
so let's follow Lenora. Let's follow the presenter,
Yeah.
and we'll be more efficient. We'll
We
get there.
actually use the term freshman here because it's a broader term. And because it addressed a lot of the issues or the questions around who are the students who who would meet these criteria. We looked at full and part-time students who are seeking a college credit certificate or licensure to turn those part-time students into full-time students. So a student who may have 6 credit hours that's only been able to go part-time would come in. And when you see the financial model, you'll see that some of the students earn credentials in the first year. That's recognizing that some of our dual credit students would be coming in with some hours, less than that 30 hours. The traditional definition of a freshman student is less than 30 credit hours. So from listening to the board's concerns in previous talks about our discussions regarding our students, we knew that you were very concerned about the students who had stopped out with a few hours, who needed to come back, who did not have that financial capacity. And so this would give those students the ability to come in, but would also help in that time on task, in that time to completion, and that some would be completing in that first year. And in that financial model, that's all been taken into consideration. So the students could be credit, certificate, or licensure bound, which would bring students in from a variety of all of our degree types and be flexible from that standpoint. Your dual credit students would be welcomed, providing that they still met those same criteria. And there would be this targeted marketing that would support this, but I think that one of the biggest pieces would be this enhanced advising and structural support that they would get, almost like a success coach, very similar to success coach programs that have worked before. And what we would probably recommend, and of course this would have to come back at the February meeting, which there could be, especially in the pilot program, a limited number that would come in. And so that this group could be monitored more closely. We would be able to come back to you with success rates. We'd be able to track them and know and really be able to measure the success and determine the viability going forward.
Maybe.
Well, yes.
On the proposed number. We have to see the success of it, so we want to keep all things open, keep all parameters open. But yes, we'd be most vigilant of that number, so absolutely.
So before we get into the financial model and kind of dig through that, based on what Lenora's presented on the proposed design, the plan design and criteria, is there additional feedback? One thing I heard for sure is that we'd like more detail on the scholarships, Pell, financial aid, and how you're going to define that part of the program, because I think there's some questions around that, and we know that there's going to be some outlying students and situations, but we know that there's going to be a group of students who qualify for financial aid, qualify for Pell, and have scholarships. So going through that detail. And then I'm hearing wanting a little bit more definition when you come back in February with this. As opposed to just a PowerPoint presentation, can you actually show us some of the documents around the definitions and around what you're proposing? Because I think that really understanding the detail is going to help us where that goes. But is there other feedback on the plan design and criteria? Regent Garza?
Yeah, I'm excited about this particular initiative, quite frankly. I just think that it is real difficult for some of our students, particularly in our, I'm going to say, economically disadvantaged population, for them to be able to see themselves being able to afford to finish in a 3-year program if they don't got to work. Now, they might be able to, if they know they've got the finances taken care of, and they're going to be able to utilize more of the dollars that they get for either scholarships or for Pell Grants or for the other financial
First year.
aid pieces, them being able to say, well, I can bite the bullet for a year and a half, particularly if they've already have some dual credit hours. I can bite the bullet and be done with my undergraduate, and I can see them being able to complete. I'm not sure what the percentage is. I don't have any idea, but I like the initiative. I do. I really do, particularly, like I said, if the state's going to come back and be able to backfill some of the revenue that we're going to lose at the front end. One of the things that does concern me a little bit, and of course, as you get to the program, I'll bring that one up, but looking at the demographics, people over 50, on the credit side, they're only 2% of our population, but looking at the continuing education part, it's 8.4% of our student population. And, I mean, those people over 50 would not be probably eligible for this type of a program, but it would be great. I'm thinking that 8.4% is actually going to grow as people are having to come back to community college in order to be able to reskill as they lose their jobs or their jobs are eliminated because of technological advances. I'm thinking that number could potentially grow. So I'd love it if, I know that you've already got a lot on your plate already, but even conversations with the workforce development, workforce, we look at how we can be able to help those, I'm going to say laid off employees or employees that are coming back for reskilling.
Yes, sir.
The 8.4% is a whole lot different than the 2.1%. Those are probably doing education for their own personal benefit, their own personal
It could be, and
goals, right?
also in this continuing ed, our transportation services program, our CDL program
Okay.
is counted in CE.
Big number, okay.
And so that tends to be an older group. You've got some programs in CE that are traditional programs, but they're in these numbers.
But I just think
So
with the emergence of AI, you're going to find
Yes, sir.
a larger number, and it's going to affect a broader area of our training opportunities. So if we can just keep that in mind, what we can do to try to help them
Yes, sir.
afford to be able and actually complete.
To clarify, if you
Thank
have
you.
under 30 hours, regardless of your age, then you would
could-
qualify for this program if you're willing to go full-time.
That's
Is that-
correct.
Is that correct? Yeah.
That's correct, but it would be for credit students.
For
Right
credit
now, the
students.
pilot is for credit, where we're also showing you the continuing ed, because we knew you were very interested in the continuing ed too. But for the pilot to get this defined group, we stayed with credit.
Okay. But regardless of age, there's not an age limitation to that?
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay.
It's all ages are welcome.
And on the other side of the spectrum, matriculating dual credit students would be eligible, regardless of where they are. Because think about it, they're at 50 hours, they're 40-something hours. They're right there. They are a completer waiting to happen.
So,
Regent Loeb, do you have a question?
Yes, so when I talked to Mark about this, I started calling them red shirt freshmen and true freshmen. So dual credit students are red shirt freshmen, so no matter how much dual credit you have, you count as a freshman. Other than that, it's less than 30 hours from us or anywhere?
Only us, right now.
Only
In the
us.
pilot program, we're holding it to us. Now, we would need to look at the finances to go further in that when I've talked to student services, they're talking about that if you look at the transfer students not coming from our dual credit programs and not coming from us, it becomes a whole different group, a whole different numbers. And so we're looking at the pilot program and defining that
Okay,
cohort
so
as us.
it's less than 30 hours from us.
regardless.
Or
Dual
dual
credit,
credit.
and dual credit doesn't count towards 30 hours.
That's right.
Got it, okay. I think that's great.
Yes, sir.
So again, that detailed definition in the final document's going to be important?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. And
So-
honestly, thank y'all. This is the type of information and feedback we need and want to know. So thank you.
So 12 credit hours per fall and spring semester. Is, let's say I wanted to take 6 summer 1, 6 summer 2, 6 fall, 6 spring. I mean, what's the difference?
That's,
What we would do, if you have a student that comes, say, within a unique program, and it could impact a program, and you could be impacted, say, you give me an example of an individual student who comes in, who's ready to graduate, they already have so many hours, and those are the courses that are in their program that are offered when they're scheduled. We would probably work with that student.
Okay.
So there's going to be some waivers in your final program?
That's right.
Yes.
Okay.
Because that's part of that enhanced student services, individualized programming. We could have a student who signs up for 12, has a catastrophic event in their family, and they drop down. Are we going to throw them out of the program? No.
Okay.
But we're going to monitor them. They get the advanced counseling, advising, and then if they start making progress, we already have systems in place, but we wouldn't kick them out of the program.
I understand having a minimum number of hours a
Right.
year, and I like the idea that, hey, if you want to do 15, and then
Go for it.
6 each summer, and that way you can front load and get us to pay for, that's great for
Yeah.
us. Because, I mean, that gets them in and through. But I also realize, like what Rudy said, there are some with exigent circumstances that,
That's
like,
right.
they can't come.
That's right.
One other thing. I am still constantly confused as to what is credit and what is CE and what is credit CE and what is not credit CE. And so I think just a list of
Definitions.
these are the programs that this qualifies for. These are, because I mean, it says certificates, but then we say not for CE. And so, I mean, there's credits, I understand
Right.
truck driving's the big CE that's
Right.
not for credit. But, I think we got to have a list of, these are the programs that it covers, these are the programs it doesn't cover. And then, when people say, well, why not that one? The answer is too bad, so sad. But, I mean, we just need to have a list.
Right.
That's
do
it
that.
for me for non-financial stuff. I was
Okay.
going to let you all get through the whole presentation, but.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Regent Kelly?
Yeah, this might seem ironic coming from me, but how does this square with the governor's mandate that we cannot raise tuition? If we initiate this program and it's not working out, are we stuck with it?
Okay, so we're calling it a pilot program.
Right.
So what are the criteria to end the pilot program?
Well,
or
if the
to-
governor says we can't raise tuition on our students,
Yeah.
Well, we wouldn't raise our tuition rate, we would just be waiving tuition. So we're
Got
not
it, okay.
changing our tuition rates.
all right, I understand the
So-
distinction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe philosophically, this even surpasses the governor's expectations and mandate, and it takes it to the next level
I
For
bet it
those
does,
students who
yeah.
qualify.
for the
Yeah.
students who qualify. So we
Yeah.
believe this is this works with the mandate.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Are there any other questions on this segment of the presentation? Not that you can't come back and revisit some things, but just kind of want to do this in chunks.
Okay.
Yes, sir?
I had a comment on some of the earlier conversation. I think it's important to point out that we're not doing books. They still got to buy their own books.
That's right.
So if they get scholarship money for that, because of my daughter's Girl Scout cookie sales, I got to talk to one of the primary non-us funders of scholarships. And, they kind of asked me about this, and their eyes kind of got, they asked me, how are we means testing it? And I said, we're not means testing it. It's, do you live in the district or not? And their eyes kind of lit up in surprise and wonderment. And part of our conversation was, this does give the opportunity to load the foundation and other people's scholarship money towards second and third year.
That's right.
And that may have some fundraising advantages because it's going, instead of them graduating high school and never having done college before, we're able to go and say, hey, this is how this person's doing in this program. And we've already paid for the first year, we want you to cover for them to finish. And that was in a lot of ways appealing because it's kind of a, it can be a crapshoot on somebody on, are they going to go to college and be successful or not? And so, I mean, I think there's possibilities we have in advising these students too, in terms of now we're trying to get them scholarships before they're here. But if we can use that first year and help the advisors find them outside scholarship money, we may be able to not have quite as much paid for by the foundation, but the foundation's going to have the money that they would be spending on these full-time students available for second and third year and part-time students. So I think that's important, and I think it could be helpful. I also kind of like the idea, we've talked a lot about the needs people have to finish, and every time we looked at, okay, childcare or healthcare or transportation, those are all very personnel-intensive programs to run.
Yes.
So if we can do this, which is not particularly personnel-intensive compared to, okay, yeah, we'll pay your childcare or we'll pay for your housing or whatever, and let them use their financial aid to just go pay for those things themselves, I think it's a more efficient use of our staff time than doing it the way we were kind of thinking about doing it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That's a great comment. Thank you.
So,
We found, and as y'all have looked at our student population over the last few years, you see the need that is out there. Just a little tidbit of a financial aid right now, 57% of our students receive financial aid. That's not including Pell. Of that 57%, 76% are minorities. And so the population that is in need is strong, is large, very large.
So as we wrap up this feedback is so important, and again, and that's why we're workshopping this, so we can have these questions, have this conversation, and ask the questions that we're going to want more detail on when they come back in February for recommendation and potential action on it. So I think it's important that we continue to provide this feedback. Any other questions here before we move on to the financial piece? Yes, sir, Mr.
You made a
Crowell.
comment about 57% are getting some form of aid absent Pell.
That's financial aid, absence Pell.
Okay, what is the percentage of students who are getting Pell?
I didn't have that before I came. Cecile, do you have it?
Well, we got
33% in addition to financial aid, or is that an overlap? It's an overlap.
Just the 33% during the fall terms will receive.
But are they also receiving financial aid?
Have to check.
Yeah. 33% are receiving Pell, but there could be an overlap between some of those receiving Pell and financial aid, and we don't have that broke out.
Mr. Garcia, had that jive with your number?
Do you?
Yes, so the data point that I talked
Microphone?
Microphone,
Your
roll.
microphone on.
Sorry. Sure, the data point that I mentioned to Dr. Escamilla, I was really excited about this one data point. But going back to those students who did not receive financial aid that will benefit from this program, 35% of the cohort that I'm looking at did not receive any form of financial aid. That's about nearly 200 students. There's going to be 200 students who never received any financial aid, and now this is almost in a form of financial aid. This tuition and fee waiver is in a form of financial aid. We are not going to assist 200 more students that never got any financial assistance.
Theoretically.
Is that because they never applied, or they weren't?
They just never qualified,
Or they're
and
not
possibly they just never applied. That's also a possibility.
yeah.
There's also a level of engagement that would happen with perhaps that cohort that allows us to get our arms around them as you start bringing them in and you start engaging them with contracts and all these other things. And so there are some other possible stipulations, but
Well,
that is the
I know
smallest.
that a lot of students are not, or high school students are not well advised as to the financial assistance opportunities that are out there, and so they just say, well, I'm going to go it on my own, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't. A lot of students do not like borrowing money. They do not like getting involved in the systems and so forth. They resist
Right.
all the way. But however, this may be an incentive, again, for them to sit down with us, and we can certainly put our teams around them, and we may change that for them. We know that that's most possible.
That's correct. Okay, if any more questions at this point, we'll move on into the financial piece. Mr. Garcia.
Well, thank you, Ms. Keys. I think I hoped to think that you took a lot of the good questions. So let's now talk about the dollars and cents. So our proposed freshman tuition and fee waiver pilot program is designed using, as I mentioned, similar plan concepts used by the Austin Community College Affordable Pilot Plan. Our plan design will help reduce the financial barriers described by our traditional and adult students at the November 21st board retreat meeting. These financial barriers included, from what I remember, that they just mentioned, are food, housing, insecurities, transportations, babysitting, and insurance costs. For this reason, the college is proposing using the first dollar in model, which will waive the tuition and fees for 3 consecutive years, targeting the freshman students with the intent that they complete their associate's degree in either 2 to 3 year time frame. Again, 2 to 3 years. Yes, sir.
Maximum 3.
Yeah, I think you may have misspoke. It sounded like you said we were going to waive tuition and fees for 3 years.
That is correct.
So that means freshman and sophomore
No,
and,
that cohort of students, for the time that they are at Del Mar,
okay, so just that cohort. And how many students are you looking for that cohort?
How many, I'm sorry, was the
How
question?
many students are we looking at for
Sure.
that cohort?
Our estimate is about 541 students will
Get,
be in contract with Del Mar College for this initiative.
So the idea, okay, so let's, yeah, I anticipated this. And so the idea is to bring them through an associate's degree. And you have 3 years to do it. Okay, look at it that way.
and we're just gonna pay it.
I'm sorry?
And we're just gonna waive it for the 3 years?
Well, it's going to get paid.
I know,
the money's
after they
gonna come-
graduate,
yes,
we get
it's-
reimbursed by the state, correct?
Yes, and that's the idea, through the state performance-based funds and so forth. So the thing is to build this pilot, to see if this is, as we understand, what we believe is through the new method of deriving state appropriations through the performance-based funds, that mechanism, if we use that to bring students through this pilot program, that we can get a series of cohorts through the associate's degree and test compressing their schedules and see how that works. That's why we're calling it a pilot. And we believe that after that it is potentially viable, and we're watching our colleagues at other colleges as well, to maybe even sustain and or even expand this, because that's the level of possibilities with the new metrics of the state appropriations through HB8 that we believe that we can generate to sustain this sort of operation. It's a whole new model. It's a whole new basis. These kinds of programs were alluded to during the HB8 conversations in Austin, and so far, only Austin has been, willing to jump out there and do this. And so we're saying we want to try this as a pilot program and see how it is potentially sustainable for an ongoing basis and or an expansion of the program.
So to be clear, this original cohort could get through an entire associate's degree without paying any tuition or fees?
Tuition or fees, yes. Not books, not associated costs, and all those other kinds of things. Tuition or fees, yes.
Okay.
and you're making an assumption of 541 based on what?
So there's a couple of pieces. So going back to my data point, which is the 23-24 first time in college student profile. There's some history of enrollment there. I know that back then we had about 610 students. A significant number of them were already taking 12 semester hours or more. So I'm saying 100% of those folks are going to want to be part of this program. Then I'm also estimating that those folks, or those individuals who took 12 semester hours, less than 12 semester hours, I'm estimating, I'm speculating that 50% of those are going to scale up their classes, increasing their semester hour to comply with the terms and conditions of the contract. And so it's not the full 610. It could be. I don't know. But I'm estimating today that it's going to be about 510 students in our first cohort.
And the intent is to compress their schedules, therefore coming out with a lesser number of students participating, of full-time students, of those signing contracts, to compress their schedule into a full-time format to get them to completion in a much higher rate. One of the things that a number that I did not hear, I apologize if it was discussed, but we know that and Matthew and I were discussing this, that when the students are taking on a full-time status, that their persistence and completion, retention and persistence rates are dramatically increased, upwards of 70% for full completions. And so it changes the very nature of this student. It gets them in, it gets them out.
Yeah. And the carrot really is, it's a use it or lose it program. If you don't do it in 3 years, then guess what? Mom, dad, child, it's on you now.
Well, and to clarify, the cohort for 2023-24 is the example group of students, because that became the example group of real students, and so that's the basis for his cohort.
So I mean, I kind of heard something a little different. So we are doing 3 cohorts where they don't pay their first year's tuition, rather than 1 cohort that doesn't have to pay anything for 3 years.
It'll be 3 successive years of 3 different cohorts, up to 60 hours per cohort, per individual.
Okay.
So on the 3rd year, 1 cohort falls off, and the new one starts up.
So you get 60 hours of tuition and fee-free classes, or 30 hours?
If you persist and comply with the contract.
Okay. All right.
Tuition and fees for a credit associate degree, whether it's technical or transfer, per student. There is an opportunity of a lifetime with up to 60 hours,
We
which
know the
is,
selling point. We're trying to figure out the numbers.
Yeah, with the focus of
Don't
in-district
sell- yeah.
students.
We don't need the selling points anymore. We're trying to understand the numbers.
And so this is assuming 541, which is equivalent to our incoming freshman. Is that equivalent to our incoming credit freshman classes now, or it's full-time or
20.
part-time? Like, are you projecting you're projecting an increase in how many full-time?
Yes, so there's 2 components to that number. Is the baseline is the 23-24 number, and then we're anticipating a 10% growth as well. So that brings us up to 510. So it's bringing in not only those students who took 12 credit hours to begin with, taking 50% of those students who took less than 12 credit hours, coming up with a head count, and then saying, we know we're going to grow from this. And our anticipating growth rate is 10% from that, bringing us up to 510 students.
Okay, so we had, how many full-time did we have this last fall that started?
First year in district, I don't have that number for you.
Okay.
It's a very narrow focus group. This cohort is very narrow and very focused, by the way. So I hope that helps.
Well, we don't see the definitions. That's why we're
Yeah.
really struggling,
Agreed.
because we haven't seen those qualifying definitions,
Right. What,
or the numbers associated, should I say. You gave us the
yeah,
definitions.
so on the completions, what percentage of those, on the revenue side, what percentage of those, that 541, are we assuming complete within the 3 years in this math?
Good. So our retention rates, we have built-in retentions that follows what we learned from the foundation. At the end of the day, we're going to have, and let me see if I have that number off my hair, my number. Yeah, we're going to be north of 70% of students completing. I think that's about 340 out of the 510 completing at year end 3. Now, obviously, students are going to fall out in year 2 and year 3. At the end of the day, we're estimating that north of 70, I want to say 73% of those students will be completers in either year 2 or year 3.
Okay, so assuming that by doing this, we maintain an identical completion rate to our current full-time students, even without the foundation money, because that's specific and, was raised for a program like this and may or may not exist in the future, it looks like we're revenue positive by giving up the tuition. And we have some space if we don't meet the same target, where it's not, we're not going to be losing money.
We will be revenue positive based on those scenarios that I just described. Yes, we will.
Okay. I know the foundation raised this money. I assume we've gone back and talked to all the donors because it was a little bit different program that got raised for, and they're all cool with it, and they want to show up and have us say thank you in February when we pass this? Or have we talked about inviting them?
Yeah, no, thank you. So the foundation board, Dr. Escamilla met with the foundation board in December. Lenora was able to update them on this pilot draft. I think this month, right? And so just over $1 million was donated a couple years back for a very similar Viking Promise program. There's some slight differences, but the core, the spirit, the intent, the purpose is the same. I have communicated with some of those folks. I think what our foundation board unanimously said is they see an alignment with the spirit and intent of those funds. And so does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I
So
just
using-
wanted to say, since we're actually going to follow through and do this and do our part, it might be nice to invite them and have them, here to celebrate that we're actually spending their money. It's not sitting in the bank account.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think right now this is more of a management and operational and discussion, and donors generally don't get into that business. But
No, I know.
once the time is right to celebrate and announce and to recognize those folks, those people and companies, it would make perfect sense to do that.
So potentially, Matthew, the foundation is considering and/or looking at $1 million donation toward this effort, potentially either in 1, 2, or 3 years, whatever tranches we all agree on. So in a scenario, it could be that the first 2 years are assisted to the tune of $500,000 per, as an idea to move forward.
Yeah, correct. So in this funding model, Raul, we'll finish it up here in a minute. You're going to see in the element Del Mar College Foundation. We have had these funds for several years. A variety of factors influenced that we were not able to, the timing wasn't right. It appears that the timing and the Board of Regents, leadership, and others, and the foundation board, this time may be right, and those funds have earned a lot of interest and dividends, and so this is great. The foundation board sees an alignment, and so especially in year one, Raul will go over the numbers, have that seed money, that startup funds. The foundation doesn't have $20 million or whatever to endow and sustain this today, but we do have enough funds, thanks to our supporters, to provide that startup and seed funds for the college to kick this off. So to me and to our foundation board leadership, they've shared with me this is a collaboration, a partnership between the foundation and those donors, and utilizing these funds in the spirit of the purpose that they are intended to support the college's initiative. Does that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to suggest, Carl kind of posited an idea where, like, what happens if somebody shows up with a scholarship that can only fund tuition and fees? And one idea I had was that your guys' money might be a little bit more flexible, where you can say, okay, you're paying for tuition and fees, great. I'm using my money to replace it to pay for something else that yours won't pay for.
Yeah, so there's two different topics. To Regent Cruel, he had a great point. It is more of a microscopic, not to dismiss that, Regent Cruel, but it is a super small, because I see every single check that comes across. And I try to write a thank you note for each one, but there's a lot, right? But when those checks come across, most of them are just, here's 1,000, here's 5,000 for this named student, right? And so we process that and apply it to the student's account. It'll cover any cost they have, and if those costs, if there are no costs, tuition fees, books, supplies, then that money will be refunded to the student for the true cost of college, which includes transportation, the laptop you have to have, the Wi-Fi at home you must pay for, the rent, all the child care. That's the true cost of college that we don't talk about a lot. And to that point, the foundation scholarship, we see this as a leverage, right? So when tuition and fees are covered for a small portion of our students, the foundation could still send that student a scholarship. And what it does is it combines that to really move them across the line to success a lot better, right? Because then they can use those donors' funds to cover the other things that are not tuition and fees. So I think we're in alignment here in terms of foundation current scholarships and future scholarships with support of this program and students.
When is the first cohort is being discussed to start with?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What
Fall
year?
25.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I think this last point, what's evident here is that there's complexity to this, and we're not going to be able to address every one student scenario, right? And so I think what's important, though, is the objective is really to revisit what I call the wraparound services, advising, counseling, financial aid, talk about what are the objectives of the plan. And obviously, we want to make sure that we advise our student to say, hey, what is more beneficial to you? Do you really want to take this option? Or you can go ahead and walk away with your current donation. But that would be an open discussion with the student, I would think, you know. But again, that's rethinking how we do business with this particular cohort.
So thank you for that segue, because our opportunity is what we've been discussing with all the HB8 initiatives as we've been preparing for now. I think we're into year 3. All of the moves, all of the adjustments, especially in the student services side that are happening simultaneously to this. This was not on our radar, so to speak, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. This falls right into the plan. There was already a change I've been talking about for 2.5 years now about the college needing to shift its resources. That coincides with this nicely. The reason why we're saying fall 25, Dr. Turner, is because what we've learned is the sooner we test something, the sooner we know, the sooner we can adjust. It also falls right in line with all of those adjustments, such as the nice segue that Mr. Garcia made about the wraparound services, the student, our counseling, as we reorganize our student counseling and advising areas, as well as other associated areas. All of this is very timely, and we're making some big time adjustments at the college.
I have some questions about the financial forecast.
Sure.
There's a funding assumption around first time in college, which I think is in conflict with what we discussed earlier. So I want to make sure that, is it, whether it's your first time in college or not, as long as you're under 30 hours, you can join the cohort, or is it first time in college? I think there's got to be clarification there.
What we've discussed is that it is a first time in college, as long as if they haven't matriculated from dual credit, remove them. If you're talking about someone who's come in and it's their first time in college and or qualifies as a freshman. So a 28-year-old individual who comes in who hasn't been to college ever and or who had 15 hours as a freshman and says, you know what, I don't want to go work on, and continue what I'm doing, here's an opportunity to dive in. So it could be
So
any-
FTIC is not the correct funding assumption, and we need to take that out.
Yeah.
First time in college is not the correct funding assumption.
It's not altogether accurate, correct?
Yeah, it's not,
Okay.
it's not fully accurate.
Okay.
That is correct. Mhm.
Okay.
We'll remove that. Yeah.
Because they're not, because I want to make sure we're clear about
Yeah.
what the definition
And
of
we do have
who
dual credit
can start.
students coming in with like 32, 34 credits because they've been taking dual credits since they were sophomores and juniors.
Right.
So what do we do with them? Will
As
they
long as they're
qualify?
matriculating from high school, they could join the cohort. So that's the only option. Is that not correct?
Yes, yes. As long as they're matriculating from high school, yes, that is correct. Correct.
And I mean, that's actually our bread and butter, because if
Yes.
if they're already halfway,
The other thing,
we have less to do for them before they
yes.
finish.
The other thing,
So I want to clarify
So
that.
just for clarity, a couple of months ago, maybe a year ago, the board approved the waiver of the cost for our dual credit students.
for those outside of FAST.
Yeah, we've already addressed their financial needs. We're now saying, okay, dual credit students, congratulations, you've now gotten your high school degree. We want you to come to us.
Yep.
We already have a relationship with you. We've already given you
In district,
free
not district.
tuition and free
Yep.
under the dual credit program. Now that you have your high school degree, matriculate with us, and now pursue a certificate and associate degree program. And guess what? We're going
we
to
got that.
continue
Yeah,
to
we got
waive.
that. The question was
yeah.
around 30 hours,
Oh.
less than 30 hours or more than 30 hours. For a high school student graduating with dual credit, it doesn't matter.
Correct.
They can have 45 hours.
Correct.
And come finish up with us
Right away.
tuition-free.
Correct.
Okay.
The item that I want to bring out right now is in district or out of district.
I'm
You know-
not through with my questions yet.
Sorry, go. I'm sorry. Okay.
I have a couple more questions.
Sure. Go ahead.
So the financial forecast, is this financial forecast we're looking at for cohort 1 in the 25-26 academic year?
Yes, ma'am.
So if we're going to, are we going to have a new cohort in 26-27?
So far, we're not ruling that out. And I say that with intent because we're still going to learn from this. It could very well be that when the second cohort starts, we may be discussing some changes. I know Rudy had expressed interest in another type of student. And I say to that, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. And so that's why we're calling it a pilot program today. We're starting with this small cohort. This way it allows us to build and strengthen our wraparound services so that we can continue and add other cohorts, the type of students that you mentioned, Mr. Garcia. And it could very well be that we can facilitate
To
that in
answer
this cohort.
your question, Regent Scott, the full model shows cohort number 1, but if you look down to the line listed as cohort number 2, Mr. Garcia added that carryover staggered line to demonstrate how that could, if we decided to go ahead with the second and third cohort, he showed how a second cohort could rotate in on that last row, second to last row.
Okay. And so cohort number, so then that raises my question, if you're making an assumption, and I'm okay with the assumption that our pilot program, we're not committing to 2 cohorts, but if we wanted to look at the financial model for 2 cohorts, one starting in fall of 2025, one starting in fall of 2026, then our numbers would continue to grow because your associate degrees, you have
Yes.
an award, outcome-based funding of $1.7 million, and in the third year, only $370,000. And so, to me, those don't match. If we're actually talking about 2 cohorts, let's look at a funding model that makes a 5-year commitment, because that would require a 5-year commitment.
Okay.
If we're looking at 3 cohorts, let's look at a 6-year model. If we're only
Yes.
looking at 1, then let's only look at 1.
Got
So
it.
let's not mix apples and oranges in terms of the cohorts.
Right, okay.
Okay.
So I want to understand that. Can someone enter in January of '26? Or are you only going to allow entrance into this program in fall of '25?
No, it's any student that comes to us, whether it's in the fall, spring,
Okay.
or summer.
Then let's put
It's
that in
already
the
built
plan.
into that
Then let's
510.
put that in the criteria as well, so we understand that
Yep.
that a student can enter at any time. I'd like to see in the next financial model, your target is 541? What
Yes,
does it look like at 20% less than that? What does it look like at
Different
25%
scenarios.
more than that?
okay.
Yeah, let's,
Let's go to low,
Yeah.
medium, and high.
right, because I think there's a potential that this is going to be very attractive to folks, because we don't want to just cover the people who are already inclined to go to school full-time.
Yep.
This is designed to encourage folks who are having trouble meeting that full-time number. So we're trying to incentivize that behavior, not just reward those that are already behaving that way.
And that is correct. It's exactly what you said. It's a market penetration strategy
Right,
as well, where
right.
we're looking now to get market share. That's what the model does as well. So, yes.
And then my last question is around the student support services. We talk about enhanced student support services. Are there additional staff that are going to be required? Can you commit that you can cover that with our existing staff? Is there, if these are in a cohort and they're going to have all the same embedded advisors, what does that look like, and are there additional costs associated with that support service?
Since we're looking at a number of students We're working through that. That's the
Okay.
short answer. But the other part of that answer is that since we're looking at essentially the same number of students, just under different circumstances, we're changing their trajectory, we're changing their loads and so forth. We believe that at this point that we have, with the changes, a restructuring of changes in our student services and so forth, that we have the right number. It's just about moving people into the right shifting the resources, consolidating efforts with the current numbers. We believe we have enough, the short answer, at this point. We feel we'll be tested once we start with that first cohort. It, along with the analysis of the data of the students' experience, will be evaluated as we move ahead.
Yes.
That's all of my questions. Mr. Garza's had his light on for a while.
Yeah, there was a couple things that were answered while I was waiting to talk. But one, of course, was the fact that you've got some numbers and you're working it through. In my opinion, it'd be cohort A or cohort 1. And then the percentage that you're talking about, people falling out. If you get 70% completion rate as you're targeting, you're going to have 15 or 20 students that are going to fall out.
That is
It'll open up
correct.
spaces or slots for, say, cohort A or cohort B, right, that might be able to fill in to continue the number at 541, even if you don't make some adjustments or increase the number.
Yeah.
My thought is, too, if you've already got a college that's doing this, you're using Austin Community College as an example or model, then some of these targeted dollars or revenue streams have already been sort of semi-approved by the state for their particular activities. So I'm kind of thinking that they're going to be, I'm going to say, an advanced guinea pig for our program, right? So as you see more experience, then we should be able to, one of the questions I had was, do we have the opportunity to, after a semester, after a year, be able to go back and review our performance? Did we get the kind of numbers that we thought we were going to get or targeting, and can we adjust that number up or down, right, continuing, going
Yes.
forward?
Yes,
So that we
the
can-
answer is we're going to watch them matriculate very closely. We're going to watch their whole experience very closely. We're going to have all of their information, and it'll be a caseload of sorts as we monitor their progress. And to your point, we can also use our colleagues up in Austin's data to see how they went, and because our year 1 would be their year 2, and therefore would have 2 just to kind of juxtapose and see how their students matriculated. So yes, and they're most accommodating in sharing that information, by the way.
The other question is, I mean, I'd like to take also previous initiatives that we've laid out, right, rolled out, like, say, for instance, our dual credit program, which we've had some success in we made it free, probably been, what, about maybe 12, 15 months ago, probably 16 months ago. Anyway, how are our numbers on our dual credit initiatives in terms of offering it free to the whole community, particularly those students that were not able to participate before for economic reasons? Does those numbers stack up pretty good against what we thought we were going to get? Are they better, right? So,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
So you want an update on our dual credit
Dual credit,
strategy?
yeah.
Yeah,
And
got
then
it.
I'm thinking too, because if the numbers are good and the numbers are higher, that's for sure. I'm just thinking about what we're going to get, how we're getting compensated by the state. Then when you start working out or working the targeted marketing program that, as mentioned, I'm not sure, one of my colleagues mentioned the fact that we're not leaving our dual credit students, right, hung out to dry after they've completed the classes that they can take in high school. We've got a continuation program to be able to assist them to go all the way to completion of getting their credential, their associate's degree.
Agreed.
Right. So then, for those students that right now may not be involved, but might be thinking about entering the dual credit program, that are saying, what happens if I can't finish in high school at least? I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste my effort. We have students in our educational system, not Del Mar's, but our combined educational systems that are checking out, in my opinion, in grade school and middle school and high school are not excelling the way they should excel because they haven't been given or haven't been educated to the point that dual credit now is available for free, and there is going to be a program that's going to help them finish to the associate's degree. So again, I want to make sure that those students, when we go to targeting, we're going to go after them and saying, hey, we've got a way to take you all the way through to the finish line.
And that's part of the plan design, the wraparound services that we need to now rethink and say, how do we bring in those students? And it really starts with the advising at the high school level and saying, hey, we're giving it to you for free. You just need about another 3 more classes and you got a certificate program. You got 1 more year, 2 more years, and it's free. So again, it's just rethinking how we do our advising business and making sure that those advisors understand the plan so that they can talk to those students at the high school before they graduate and then bridge them over to our institution and say, hey, you made it thus far. You just got a little bit more to go and you're done.
That's good.
Do you have anything else, Regent Garza?
Yeah, just great job. Dr. Escamilla, staff, everybody. I mean, I'm just excited about this program. I just think that if we show some results at the tail end, when we go to the state and say, look, your dollars that you've thrown out there as carrots, I mean, we're taking full advantage of and keep the funding going because I think we're going to do some great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Garza. Regent Kroll.
Okay, in this conversation, several questions have come up. But first, all the funding for this is out of House Bill 8? Okay.
Yeah, so I've been dying to get to that, if you don't mind.
Wait a minute.
Oh, okay.
It's just different pots.
Yes. We're talking about state appropriations.
All right.
Performance-based state
Okay.
appropriations.
That clears that up. The comment you made about the student support services and being able to use existing resources, I have a suspicion that maybe these students are going to need a little more hand-holding and a little more encouragement
Yes, sir.
to stay through the program, which may need additional staff.
Anytime you have a profound effect on a student's schedule, lifestyle, and so forth,
Yeah.
will require, we have the people in place now.
Okay.
Bringing them to could very well be part of their contract and so forth as required counseling sessions and so forth. So these are all the kinds of things that we're talking about, bringing them in. So yes, we'll change it. We'll change their lifestyle. Dr. Patricia heard me. She wants this. You want to? Anyway, well, it is, again, we're gonna start with the team that we have, and we're gonna
I just
work our way through that
have a
for sure.
suspicion as this program grows that the needs of these students is going to be greater than the needs of a normal student.
Their lifestyle will change dramatically.
Right. I think the other comment made, Mr. Garcia, is, in terms of the counseling part of it and getting this basically out to the dual credit students. Are we relying on the high school counselors to do that, or are we doing this individually?
So I'm going to get the area expert, the subject matter experts up here. Dr. Leonard, if you would help us with this. It's going to be a combined effort.
Well, because if it's the high school counselors that are
Come up,
doing
Patricia
it,
and Leonard, both of y'all. I want the subject matter experts to come up here. So as we move forward, as dual credit's been growing, let me kind of restate that. I heard you very clearly, Mr. Kroll. But as we've grown in dual credit, exponentially, I might add, especially on the CE side as it balances out, as those needs have come, And as we're repositioning, I want you all to describe how things are currently being served with our resources now, and how the perspective, the changes that we're about to go through with restructuring and so forth might look by fall of this coming year.
Okay, well, first of all, Leonard and I already work really well together, and our teams work well together. We collaborate on the academic calendar planning with staff, who's going to go out to schools when, if we got to bring the cavalry to help the dual credit staff or vice versa. The dual credit staff go out there and advise like they usually do. And then through Gracie's outreach, she has 3 outreach people that go out and do anywhere from community events and also high schools. And then we have the liberal arts advisors that are here, kind of mind the store, but they also are assigned to go to high schools. And they do a lot of the senior exit advising when we take them from dual credit, or even students who didn't do dual credit, and advise them and recruit them to come to Del Mar. So that part, we do well.
Yep.
Yes, and then I would add, as we go forward in time, we're actually, along with Dr. Patricia's fine staff, and then our fine staff that are in the dual enrollment offices, we're partnering more intently with organizations within the school districts and other organizations that support school districts to also utilize a team approach towards serving our students in a more holistic fashion. And so I know Dr. Escamilla, myself, and others, we're working on some initiatives, I'll say, that we'll unveil here in the months to come. But there's a lot of great initiatives that we have planned that will, again, provide a deeper dive into the high school systems. It actually, what we're planning to do is even go down, more importantly, to the middle school level. We know that the school students, middle school students, need to declare a pathway program at that level. And so it just makes sense for us to be more intent with our middle schoolers. And then also, we can't forget our elementary kids. And yes, elementary kids, you might think, well, they're too small to understand, but the genesis about that is that they are open sponge, they're like sponges. They need to be able to grasp what's going on earlier as opposed to later. So there's a lot of interesting initiatives that we're going and developing along with Dr. PBD's staff and faculty. But I can assure you that I'm excited about what we're about to embark on, and what we're doing now. It's just going to get more enhanced as we move forward.
The reorganization will come in April. We'll do a presentation to show you the reorganization of what we have. There are additional positions. Leonard's been approved of several positions for high school embedded navigators that are our employees that will be working at the various school districts and the number of the various high schools here. So he has up to 7 positions coming his way.
Correct.
So there will be some additional staff to help us being brought on to the payroll, but then we're also reorganizing how many advisors, counselors do we have? Did we count that? I counted that the other day.
We have about 10.
Yes, and then
On the
the
student
embedded,
services side?
and the centralized, both
Okay.
combined.
Oh, well, that's more than that. It's like.
Yeah, I
30.
know. It's a big number. It's like 30.
Didn't we get a grant?
All faculty, part of their fundamental responsibility is to do advising.
Of course.
So they work with dual credit as well.
Yes.
And the faculty have been trying to do some pilot work in departments for case management. So they're very much on board with trying to restructure some of that advising. Did you have a?
No,
I'm
please.
sorry.
The question was around the connection with the high schools, and how are
Yes.
we going to get the information out to those dual credit students?
And so the faculty do work with Dr. Rivera and Patricia Benavides Dominguez and others, and they go out to the high schools. For example, our welding faculty go out on a regular basis and do advising for those students. So we have specialty people. We also have embedded advisors in departments as well for the particular pathways as well.
Any other questions, Mr. Kroll?
No, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't relying on high school counselors to carry the word.
No, sir.
Yeah, no,
Because
that's a good observation. They are certainly overwhelmed, and I
They're
think.
overwhelmed with
Yep, we
other
understand.
issues.
Yes, and we recognize that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Kroll.
Excuse me, can I just
Yes.
ask a question?
Yes.
Didn't we get a grant to be able to do outreach for dual credit?
We have one position, but we're
100
augmenting that in a couple different ways for the middle school initiative and
Okay,
so
okay,
forth.
good.
Patricia, Gracie went and wrote
We
that
have,
grant.
Gracie has a grant through coordinating board, and that person is going out to the middle schools. And also through Title V DMC3, we have hired additional advisors, one in the testing, one in English, one in math, one in liberal arts, and I think I'm missing another one. But yes, we have other grant opportunities that are going out to schools.
And there's another initiative soon to come. I mean, we haven't sealed that deal just yet, but we have something that is going to really advance our middle school initiatives. That's coming either probably in the March meeting, if not February, if we're lucky. I think February might be too soon, but there will be significantly more resources dedicated to our middle schools here in our area for the middle school initiative.
Well, again, this, what we're talking about here is
Yeah.
this one cohort for the pilot program, so. Regent Loeb, you had additional questions?
Kingsville did a deal at our graduation where they accepted everybody and gave them a scholarship. Are we plotting a similar thing for all of our in-district high schools?
You know, what little I know about the Kingsville plan, I think they've adopted the last dollar in. It's significantly different than ours, and I think our plan is probably a little bit more competitive than their plan.
I understand that, but, you know, it was splashy, and everybody who was there heard it, including the families. So, I mean.
So May graduation has all kinds of potential. Stay tuned.
Okay. I just want to kind of on the dual credit transfers on here. So do we get money when a dual credit student of ours transfers into when they matriculate, we get a transfer check from the state?
Yes, we do. We get $3,500 for every ISD dual credit students that enrolls or matriculates with us.
Okay.
$3,000
And then
per
they get-
student.
Well, they get up to 15 hours. That's upon completion. That's upon a completion, Patricia. Come on.
Yes, I'm
The
sorry.
metrics are, the metrics are different. Hang on. You're answering a different
The
question.
first House Bill 8 metric is that as a
15
dual
hours.
credit student, when they earn 15 hours while here, we will earn $3,500 per
Yes.
student.
15
Now, the
hours.
metric of transfer has nothing to do with dual credit. The metric of transfer is that if we have a student here coming to our institution and they earn 15 hours and they transfer to another institution, then we get another $3,500.
Okay.
So
if a-
15 hours and then completion. If
Right.
it's straight transfer for credit student.
Right. So a student can be here, earn 20 hours, and then transfer to ABC University, and we'll get $3,500. A student, a dual credit student who, let's say, earns 15 hours and graduates from high school, attends here, and let's say earns another 15 hours, and then transfers, we'll get $3,500 for that as well.
But we do not get a matriculation outcome. We get a 15 semester credit hour dual credit outcome.
Right.
Correct.
And/or certificates along the way.
Right.
And/or.
In addition, yes.
So, I mean, I just, the reason I asked how many incoming we had that qualified this fall is I kind of wanted to see what the difference between our, you know, we have a certain amount of performance funding that we already get, and this is kind of assuming that that's all new. It's not all new. In reality, you know, our cost of doing this is $1.5 million a year for the course of this, or about $7,000 per student if this is a 510 student cohort. And that is paid for in our budget, assuming, we're just getting $4 million a year more from doing how we modified our stuff for HB8. So that's paying for this.
Correct.
Okay. But if we get more students,
That number goes up.
we get more upside because that is completions that we did not have, or if we convert students that would have been part-time to full-time and they complete, that's more money that we're getting from the fact that they're completing and completing faster.
Correct. Our greatest challenge, our greatest opportunity is that our students are on that part-time path, and this brings them in. This is that carrot that brings them in to a shorter time to complete.
Yeah. And then from a cash flow perspective, here's the big one. Cash is king, right? We get our cash a lot sooner the student completes. So right here, Mark has been saying a compression outcome. We're graduating our students, 75% of our students in years 2 and 3. Our history is about 18% for 3 years.
Right.
In general. So cash flow, the way the state works, the bigger dollars comes in at the back end, at the completers when students complete. This compression piece is getting our dollars sooner. So from a cash flow perspective, we're bringing in cash a lot quicker.
Have you done any analysis on how much of our student services are based on how many students we have? Because if our average completion gets cut in half, then our advising costs are, all the things where we just have to have enough bodies to be able to talk to people. We'd essentially be getting more money from the state, but have half the amount of work to do in terms of meeting with people or keeping records for somebody or things like that. Have we done any work on the financial impact of that?
Not to that degree, not to that level.
But you understand my
Yes.
point? Like, if we're completing twice as fast, the same number of students, we have half the enrollees.
Yeah, but I want to point out right here, here's the net results of that first cohort. I'm going to generate revenue positive 2.5 million for the first cohort in year 3. I can absorb any incremental cost associated with additional human capital, possibly in the area of advising to make our plan successful.
Right.
On top of that, we also have some built-in contingencies by board policy. And what are they? I got 8.6 million in risk reserve management. I got 1.9 planned in our 2025 budget in contingency based on board policy. So I can absorb any, in the short term, fairly quickly, I can absorb any incremental cost and still allow for this program to become successful using any of those 3 buckets that I just pointed out.
Next question.
Yeah, I mean, I would say on the budgeting aspect, I mean, Chair Scott kind of said something, I think, about 5 years is, I think it would be good to look at it like, 2 cohorts over 5 years because, I mean, if we only do it for 1 cohort, what's that going to tell us? We're not going to have enough information, I don't think. We're not going to be able to see what our completes are for the first cohort until the second cohort's already recruited and halfway through.
Especially on the traditional age students, the matriculating dual credit students will show us, that's a different sector that will show us something. At least we can take that data. But to your point, we understand that
Yeah, I
those
mean,
traditional age students not with 3 hours from 19 or 2010, you're exactly right. So we're beginning with what we can.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
One more thing. We have some superstars that finish an associate's degree while they're in high school. Are we going to let them come for a bachelor's under this or not?
It's a great question.
So
Because the bachelor's pay to us is even better than the associates.
So it is a.
Or, well, I mean, I guess
It is, you know, we love when you bring these brilliant questions forward. But it's a very interesting, intriguing name, intriguing question. I am thrilled by the question. I need to hear what the board thinks.
I mean, I don't have a problem with it.
Me either.
It's an
Like,
18-month opportunity online that brings them into a bachelor's level experience at the age of some.
Or a BSc.
I mean,
You also have the nursing
Well, the
program.
BSN
Would that
is
apply to
different
the
because they'd
nursing
have to
programs?
have, that would be a little bit different because they would have to have that would assume that they would have an ADN, Associate Degree in Nursing. And so
Well,
that
run the
is.
numbers and see what it looks like.
And there'll be some case-by-case basis. I can already see Dean Schrammick back there nodding in the affirmative and so forth. So this is exciting talk. And so we'd love to cross those bridges when we see them, but we need the feedback from what your
I mean,
expectations could be.
I'm fine with it. I assume that if you finish an associate's degree while you're in high school, your need for us to manage you and your time is pretty low.
And we know the collegiate.
Well, even if you finish your 2-year degree in 2 years, you still have that third year. So I was wondering, did that third year of funds continue if they want to go into the nursing program or your leadership program? So I wasn't quite sure.
So that's a good, there's a opportunity up to 3 years, but is there a max of 30 hours or 60 hours, I should say?
So our scenario really was based on that first 2 years. And so we will quickly analyze what that could look for the BAS OML degree especially. And we can bring that analysis back. If I get the affirmative from the board to move ahead, if I get a consensus, as I'm sensing right now.
I would rather, I think those kinds of students would be remarkably qualified for scholarships, and I would rather continue the program with new cohorts than to provide something above an associate's degree for existing cohorts. Would be my feedback on that. I would rather spread out the opportunity to more folks.
That works too, and I'm getting the affirmative from Matthew. I can see your head nodding over there, Matthew. And that is that it stretches those dollars in the foundation. We've talked about that numerous times over the past few weeks, in that, those 2,000 students that didn't get that opportunity could therefore, be addressed with their needs. And then the BAS OML degree could be a whole new sector. So we'll do the analysis anyway, but we'll certainly, I see both sides of that we're.
Got a couple more questions.
Well,
Are we finished, David?
Yes.
Okay.
So I heard David and Laurie, I think, ask two very different questions. David is asking, if someone comes into our program already with an associate's degree, can they use this program to get a bachelor's? In other words, again, the 60 hours to end up with a degree, as opposed to you're in the program and you get your associates in a year or 2 years, can you use the third year? Those sound like different questions to me.
And there are two different scenarios, again, that we would have to probably analyze, but I think as we move, we need a couple more weeks to process this. We will analyze those. We will bring those questions back. We will review this film, this recording, to make sure we're taking in those two very different scenarios.
I have two more points around the funding. One is, this is based on House Bill 8 funding, and we won't know until June. We'll know earlier than that if they passed our supplemental appropriation to make us whole for the last biennium, because we've outperformed as a sector on the outcomes-based funding, so we need an additional about $45 million to make us whole as a sector. And then there's an additional funding request for the next biennium to continue funding this dynamic funding formula. So if that doesn't happen, if the state is not indeed funding us in a dynamic fashion, that's going to be a real indicator to us. So I think we need to be very clear in the pilot is yes about what we can afford, but also is the state funding going to continue as originally intended. So that's a caveat in there that I think we all have to be aware of.
The fact that this is kicking in until fall of '25.
But we're going to make the commitment potentially in February, and we'll promote the program and accept people under the pilot program.
Yeah.
And we won't know until June, which is.
So
yeah.
we're running a risk there of having a program and.
Right, I don't think the state funding is not going to go away, but is it going to increase at the level we're making assumptions it's going to increase? So that's
Yeah.
part of the pilot, that's part of the assumptions that I think we have to be prepared for and understand the potential loss leader if it doesn't work. So I wanted to throw that out there. The other question is, by this time next year, we won't be finished with cohort 1. We will be into cohort 1, and so what are your early indicators that are going to tell us whether or not our assumptions are holding fast, are the funding assumptions holding fast, or the numbers? What are our early indicators going to be? So at this point next year, we have some indication about how successful potentially the program is.
So it's persistent, it's semester to semester persistence.
Okay.
Is going to be your earliest indicator, and Lenora, thank you for stepping up on that one. And so that's going to be your first line, and so it's going to be semester completion and semester to semester persistence. That's the earliest low-hanging fruit. Lenora?
Yes, sir, that's it. And we'll be tracking these students individually, and we'll know those that persist. We'll know that we've know how much we've intervened, with counseling. We'll also know exactly the licensures that have been awarded, the outcomes that have been awarded, the certificates, the short-term completions. We will be able to track all of that. So you'll have.
But we won't know all of that until May of 2026. Again, we'll know the semester to semester persistence.
Well,
But you'll know
semester
some at the
completeness,
end
too.
of fall.
At the end of
You'll
fall,
know
okay.
some at
Yeah,
fall.
the completion of the first semester.
Gotcha.
Yep, and
You know
how did they
some.
complete? And
But
how
not
did-
all the licensures and certificates might not be there. My
No,
point.
no, but I mean, we would have a benchmark, time and place,
Yep.
as to how many are at that point in time.
Yeah, there-
Everything would be at point in time moving forward.
So I think what you're hearing from us overall is I don't hear anybody saying, nope, don't want to do this, stop, stop in your tracks. So these are all questions that we want to understand the details. This is a big commitment on behalf of the community, on behalf of our taxpayers, on behalf of our students. And so we want to understand. So when you come back to us in February, I think we need all those details. Again, not just an overview PowerPoint, but really give us some of the details in advance and expect some good questions there as well.
There will be more detail along these lines of assumptions and student outcomes. This, to me, right here, this one slide, that the three-year pilot plan financial forecast, and that left column over there is really the meat of this presentation that will be expounded upon for clarity. And we will bring that. We will review this recording. And although we are taking notes and so forth, we're going to sit down and review this recording. And team, I'm buying the popcorn, so we'll be okay. So get ready. I just think, well, I've got closing remarks, but I'll wait for you. I'll defer to you, Madam
You have
Chair.
one more question, Mr. Lowe?
I wanted to go on the governor's thing. I know when they did that with the universities last time, there was a commitment that was followed through on to actually increase state funding. So have we heard any intimation that the stick comes with a carrot? Are they planning on seeking us getting the money to make up for not doing a tuition increase to account for inflation?
That part has only been discussed around the universities, as you've indicated. We've not heard that second half of the conversation. I've had one meeting with the association about the governor's mandate, and right now it continued to be a work in progress, but the advisement of the association is that we all adhere to the governor's mandate, that we've been included. That's all I know.
Okay, because I mean, if we want to give people pay raises, there's tuition or there's taxes, and if both of those are bad, then.
And there's with the work that the team has done to put, quote, more product on the shelf, to use Patricia's term, and in terms of the number of qualified areas for state reimbursement, we have more inventory out there and areas for people to take on for us to generate. So our store has grown significantly, so to spek.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, another question I have is, why isn't truck driving credit?
It's continuing
All right, that's another
education credit.
conversation.
Well, call me tomorrow morning first thing. I have a dinner tonight. So.
I think I did that my first meeting where I was like, why is this, what's credit, what's not credit, why?
CEUs.
Someday I'll understand it all.
Professional
Take them aside.
CEUs.
Take them aside.
Okay.
All right, so you said you have a couple of wrap-up comments, Dr. Escamilla?
Yes, just that, Regents, thank you for your indulgence and your patience and so forth. This is a fairly quick-moving train in so many regards, but your patience, your attention to this, your passion for this is noted. This is a bold move. You all have asked me repeatedly over the years to think boldly, to think broadly, to think beyond. This is thinking in that way and in that spirit. I bring these with you based on your direct feedback to me when we go back there, and without getting into specifics as per law, but when the spirit with which the conversations that we have are all about things like this. And that's why I bring this to you in the time and manner that I brought it to you. And I thank you so much for your indulgence. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Escamilla. So if you have any questions and feedback as you think about this and dwell on this some more, please give Mark a call and let him know additional feedback. We will, from a calendaring purpose, for our next meeting is going to be February 4th. And Delia just sent out a note to all of us that the memorial classroom groundbreaking or celebration that was scheduled for next Tuesday, the 21st, has been postponed due to weather, I'm assuming, since it's supposed to be one of the coldest days of the season, to Thursday, February 6th. So if you were not aware of that, and I'm saying that publicly as well, for those folks that may be watching, please join us for the memorial classroom dedication Thursday morning, February 6th. Is there anything else for the calendar, Delia, we need to call out? All right, then with no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 5:56 p.m.